Once upon a time, there was a wise Zen master who lived in a small village in the early kingdom. He had a young student who was eager to learn the ways of Zen, and so the master would often share stories and lessons from the past to teach his student about life.
The master was known for his insightful stories, which were filled with wisdom and teachings of the ancient sages. One day, he decided to share with his student a lesson about the early kingdom and how people lived during that time. Long ago, there was a great king who ruled over the early kingdom, the master began. He was a wise and just ruler, and his people loved and respected him greatly. His kingdom was prosperous, and his subjects were happy. The master then paused and looked at his student. But you see, my student, the king was not always happy. He had a great sorrow that weighed heavily on his heart. The master continued. He had a son who was very ill, and despite all the efforts of the physicians and wise men, they could not cure him. The student listened intently, wondering what lessons his master was going to teach him from this story. The king then heard of a wise sage who lived in the mountains and was said to have great healing powers. The master went on. The king immediately sent for the sage and begged him to come and heal his son. The sage traveled to the king's palace and examined the prince. He then set to work, preparing a special potion that he believed would heal the prince. The master paused again and looked at his student. But you see, my student, the sage had one condition. He said that he would prepare the potion, but the king must personally deliver the potion to his son, the master continued. The king was surprised, but he agreed to the condition, and the sage prepared the potion. The master smiled and continued. When the king returned to his palace, he had the potion delivered to his son. As soon as the prince drank the potion, he was immediately healed. The king was overjoyed and sent for the sage to thank him. The sage simply smiled and said, I had no doubt that your son would be healed, but I wanted to teach you a lesson. You see, my dear king, it is not wealth or power that brings happiness. It is the love and devotion that you have for your son that made you travel to the ends of the earth to find a cure for him. The master then looked at his student and said, Remember, my dear student, wealth and power are fleeting, but the love that we share with our loved ones, that is what truly matters. It is what brings happiness and fulfillment in life. The student listened intently, realizing the power and truth behind his master's words. He knew that this lesson would stay with him for a lifetime, and he felt grateful.